Hello and welcome to the ID Talk podcast. My name is Peter Counter and I'm the editor-in-chief of FindBiometrics, where we are celebrating our 17th annual year in review. Throughout January on ID Talk, we will be interviewing biometrics and identity industry leaders about the major milestones, not just of the year, but also the previous decade. That's why in this latest episode, I am excited to present an interview with a pioneering expert in biometrics, Iris ID. FindBiometrics Vice President of Digital Content Susan Stover sat down with Mohammed Murad, Vice President of Global Sales and Business Development at Iris ID, to get his views on the decade in biometrics. After reviewing major milestones from the past 10 years, including insight into India's monumental Aadhaar national ID program, Stover and Murad pivot to talk about the healthcare biometrics market, which has been heating up recently, with iris recognition offering solutions for medical record access, security in clinics and hospitals, and pharmaceutical manufacturing applications. Their conversation concludes with a look back on Iris ID's 2019 highlights and a preview of what's to come. It's an exciting conversation about a fascinating area of biometrics. So without further ado, here is Susan Stover in conversation with Iris ID's Mohammed Murad on the ID Talk podcast.
Welcome to ID Talk. My name is Susan Stover, VP of Digital Content here at FindBiometrics and Mobile ID World. And today I'm joined by Mohammed Murad, Vice President of Global Sales and Business Development at Iris ID. Thanks for joining me today, Mohammed.
Oh, thank you for having us. It's always fun to do stuff with FindBiometrics.
Well, so today we're going to start out by we're looking back on a decade of biometrics through our year in review coverage. And Iris ID is a pioneer in biometrics, giving you a unique perspective on the decade that's now ending. What, in your opinion, were the biggest milestones in biometrics for the past 10 years?
Well, Iris, thank you very much but Iris ID is an actual pioneer in iris recognition biometric as a modality. And we have been doing this since 1997. We feel that the last 10 years, the advances of biometrics inclusion in mobile devices and other platforms, computing platforms, really allowed the community or consumers to feel very comfortable with biometrics and allowing them to use it on a regular basis. So that basically, I would say, that was the milestone in this decade. And we feel that by having the comfort of consumer allowed overall industry to explore biometrics in many, many different applications.
So how would you say that iris biometrics have changed in recent years in the wake of this mainstream consumer adoption of biometrics in general?
Well, first, the education part of consumers to know that biometric is really something that can help them protect their privacy. And provide a stronger security medium to whatever transactions that they are performing. So the advances of biometrics, what helped iris recognition in this advancement was that the actual platform or for the biometrics that shrank, the price of devices came lower tier. The demand increased for iris recognition, and it went into adoption. Instead of having high secure areas, people are starting to utilize those for more mainstream applications like workforce management and other authentication applications.
This decade, we also saw the rise of multimodality in mainstream applications. How does iris uniquely fit into the larger biometric modality landscape today?
Fantastic questions. We are by nature a multimodal biometric. Of course, our focus on authentication technology is iris recognition, but simultaneously, all our solutions acquire face as well. So by having everybody want to involve with face, and to be able to utilize the accuracy and expediency of iris recognition. So by nature, our solution is multimodal. So that basically helps the adoption of iris recognition across many, many applications.
And it's safe to say that one of the most important initiatives that really proved the value of biometrics in this decade was India's Aadhaar national ID program. How has Iris ID participated in Aadhaar this decade, and how do you see that evolving?
Well, that is, you're right. Having a Aadhaar program really changed the scope of national ID programs across the world. We have been involved in the Aadhaar program since 2010, so essentially for the entire decade. Lots of lessons we learned, how technology work and what the government uniquely did by having these programs for enrollment of the citizens across the country, and they were very visionary in how they adopted that whole enrollment program and schemes across the country. So from other national ID applications or countries who are looking to deploy these applications, they look at that as a example. So we know there are many countries in Central Asia and other developing areas that they have looked at the Aadhaar program, learned some of the lessons, or learned from some of the lessons there, and then applied those in their programs to really help in expediting the enrollment process, and also making sure that it's not a lock-in from one vendor. You have the ability to have use open standards to be able to utilize multi-vendor technologies.
Right. Are there any other specific lessons that other countries can learn from Aadhaar when considering implementing a national ID system?
Well, I think the biggest thing that they did was, the most expensive part of any national ID program is the manpower to enroll people. And what they did was they subcontracted that out to many different private sector agencies. So this allowed them not to have a huge payroll or resource on government side, but it's basically they set the standard, how the technology need to work, how the software need to behave, what components they have to utilize, and then set up the standard on the quality of those, and then certification programs, which then now they can go and buy multi-vendor technologies, making sure everything is working as supposed to, the way Aadhaar requires, and the enrollment became a very simple process by having it distributed out into the private sector. So I believe many countries are looking at that program to see how, and some of the large population countries are looking at how they can utilize a similar concept for enrolling people, and enrolling people in some of the very, very difficult to reach areas.
Iris ID Systems provides the world's most deployed iris recognition solutions. The company's iris access technology is used by customers including corporations, law enforcement, customs and border crossing officials, airports, and national ID and healthcare programs to authenticate millions of identities daily. New Iris ID platforms integrate with hundreds of existing Android-based time and attendance applications, or with custom solutions to process payroll and calculate benefits such as health, disability, and vacation. Mobile ID platforms capture both iris and facial modes and fingerprints in the most remote and toughest of conditions. Visit the website www.irisid.com for more information to learn how Iris ID's expertise in advanced identity authentication can add security, convenience, privacy, and productivity to virtually any organization.
So just pivoting over to Iris ID's participation in healthcare. So Iris ID recently released an educational paper on biometrics in healthcare. How have biometrics been deployed in the healthcare space in recent years, and where do you see that evolving?
Well, we think that as a non-contact biometric, Iris has a great fit in the healthcare market. And we are seeing a good paced progression in deployment across healthcare, multiple areas, multiple applications of healthcare, from patient registration to patient identification, for pharmaceutical industry utilizing our technology for complying to manufacturing regulations from different government authorities. So we really feel that we have a very, very strong fit into the healthcare market as a non-contact application for access control and general authentication of people.
Mm-hmm. So your paper does emphasize pharmaceutical manufacturing, like you mentioned. Why are biometrics important for that sector of healthcare, and what gives IRIS such an advantage in that space?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, that in the previous answer, that it's a non-contact biometric. So, as from a safety perspective, they need something to identify individuals where they don't have to touch a device. So, and IRIS works really well because in manufacturing, specifically in the healthcare area, where most of the time they're wearing masks, they're wearing goggles, IRIS technology can work through all those, where other non-contact technologies may have challenges. And they are very heavily regulated. That means that every process in that manufacturing, every step in that manufacturing process may have to authenticate the ID of the person who's initiating the process or terminating the process. So all those things are time consuming if they have to sign something or identify by a PIN code, etc. So by inclusion of a non-contact iris recognition solution into that process allows them to expedite those authentication steps.
Are there similar verticals that take advantage of IRIS's ability to serve highly regulated spaces? I imagine university labs would offer an interesting opportunity.
Absolutely. So, within the healthcare sciences, of course, everybody focuses on hospitals, which is the service provider arm of the healthcare industry, and then pharmaceutical, which is the manufacturing environment. But there is another piece, which is the laboratory where all the research happens, or irradiator labs where your blood is stored. All those areas are currently using our technology to provide protected access or secure access to those facilities. So absolutely, there is a fit into that area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just a kind of a general access control modality.
Correct. I mean, and that's where we, in the healthcare industry, that's where we started with, that all laboratories where they're doing, high-tech biotech research, and those areas were our customers in the early days. And from that, of course, the next step in the consumer areas is the patient registration and then healthcare manufacturing. So iris recognition has a very strong fit in the healthcare market as being a non-contact biometric and most accurate.
Iris ID Systems provides the world's most deployed iris recognition solutions. The company's iris access technology is used by customers including corporations, law enforcement, customs and border crossing officials, airports, and national ID and healthcare programs to authenticate millions of identities daily. New Iris ID platforms integrate with hundreds of existing Android-based time and attendance applications or with custom solutions to process payroll and calculate benefits such as health, disability, and vacation. Mobile ID platforms capture both iris and facial modes and fingerprints in the most remote and toughest of conditions. Visit the website www.irisid.com for more information to learn how Iris ID's expertise in advanced identity authentication can add security, convenience, privacy, and productivity to virtually any organization.
In 2019, Iris ID was active in the African regions. What are some initiatives you have underway there, and what unique identity challenges face that region?
Well, that is a very challenging region. So for the last several years, we have been focused on generating awareness in the African subcontinent. And we are seeing a good progress where there are many countries have published RFP or government requirements where IRIS is an integral part of their program for voter registration or for national ID registration or other sort of welfare programs. We have programs for child immunization or other communicable diseases control or research, etc. So we see that African continent has a great fit for a non-contact iris recognition biometric.
What were Iris ID's big milestones in 2019?
We hit some milestone. We have one of our best year from a financial perspective. We have gained some of the very unique and large customers across the world. We announced our new time and attendance product line, where we're trying to now focus more on the vertical application markets, not just across identity authentication market. So 2019 was a very, very pivotal year for us from that perspective.
Mm-hmm. And what's next for Iris ID in 2020?
Well, you will see a lot of exciting things. I can't tell you everything on the podcast, but keep looking on your radar, and you will see very, very innovative ideas from Iris recognition. From Iris ID in 2020. We're very excited about 2020. We have some opportunities that we feel are going to be very unique for biometrics.
Well, we always run into you at the same trade shows, and we'll be really looking forward to continuing to report on you throughout this next year. So I'm sure there's a lot of exciting things. Can you let our listeners know how to get in contact with Iris ID and learn more about today's topics?
Absolutely. So they can go to our website, www.irisid.com, or they can drop us an email at sales@irisid.com. There is a lot of material available on our website, and there are ways on the website to be able to contact us, or they can drop us an email and somebody will be in touch with them as soon as possible.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining me today, Mohammed.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me.
And so concludes Susan Stover's conversation with Mohammed Murad, Vice President of Global Sales and Business Development at Iris ID. To learn more about Iris Biometrics and other topics discussed in this episode of ID Talk, visit irisid.com. And be sure to visit FindBiometrics.com to read our Year in Review featured coverage, in which our expert editorial team is analyzing the intriguing results from our recently completed Year in Review survey. I want to thank Mohammed and Iris ID for lending expertise to this episode. Today's interview, again, was conducted by Susan Stover. Our podcast theme music is by Logomrad. I have been your host, Peter Counter. Thank you for listening to the ID Talk podcast.